Testing often operates as a smoke screen for serious problems that we are unwilling to face.
That ultimately, if you ask a parent what they want, what he or she wants for his child growing up, very few of them are actually going to say the things that are embedded in No Child Left Behind.
That little red schoolhouse over there is actually the entrance to the U.S. Department of Education. Inside, there are hundreds, maybe thousands of people working to enforce one of the weirdest and most punitive laws ever passed. NCLB demands that schools' test scores improve so that by the year 2014, there is no achievement gap.
The real problem with No Child Left Behind at the very core is that it's not a systems approach to fixing a systems problem.
High-stakes assessment has killed teachers learning and developing as assessors, because it has basically taken these external tests and then you look at that data. But what really helps students learn is assessment that is based in the classroom.
A standardized test is not going to teach them what that child needs to know, what that child needs to learn. The whole standardized test system is set up so that teachers don't even get the scores in a timely fashion so that they can plan instruction for those students.
And what the teachers want is not another test. We don't need another test to give to children to find out who the children are that are struggling. What the teachers want and what we're really asking is, how can we help these children? What can we do to really help the children who are struggling?
The testing and accountability of No Child Left Behind looks at different bands or levels. And some administrators, unfortunately, end up spending a lot of time focusing on students who are right below passing, that they put all their energies in helping those students get a little bit better. It's not actually an effort that's distributed equally among all students in helping each child grow.
Children who are at the very low end of the assessment ladder, who people believe have little chance to pass a test, are often not given resources that would help them learn, and those resources are put into the education of the children who are near the testing standard.
Most schools have to report AYP for 37 categories of kids, by ethnic group, by grade, by income level, so on. If any one category doesn't make AYP, the whole school is labeled a failure and all the kids can go somewhere else.
All students in our school were offered choice after we had a certain number of years in the failing category. And the students that chose to leave are those that were not failing. So the funds that are intended to help the students who are having the most difficulty in school end up being used to transport the students who are having a great deal of success in school.
I don't think parents understand, or the community in general, understand really what it means to be a passing school or a failing school.
What we've seen the last several years is the people that do the moving tend to be the children who are already achieving well, which means the school is just left even that further behind.
At schools that are quote-unquote failing, that they're given more and more of these kind of standardized tests, that most of their day is spent bubbling in and finding out that there's only one right answer to questions. And yet in more affluent schools, children are allowed to ask the questions. They're not told that there's only one right answer. That's not fair. That's not equitable. That's not just.
We need to get away from the agrarian calendar and the factory model. We don't all progress at the same rate. Any parent who's had more than one child can tell you they develop and hit their benchmarks at different times in their lives. Nobody does it exactly at the end of third grade.
I think a lot of educators who are frustrated with No Child Left Behind, it's not really the accountability. I think pretty much anybody who's in education because they really care about kids and learning, it's fine to be accountable. We just want to be accountable for the things that really matter. And that is really that each child is growing and is growing in those elements that make somebody whole. And the narrow, tightened, high-stakes focus on just a small subset of those things is really kind of tearing that apart.
Really, the time we need to be spending in our classrooms is on assessing our kids the beginning of the year and all year long to make sure they're making the gains that they're capable of making.
One way of going about this is being accountable that there's an ongoing process for assessing, making sense of what it is we're seeing and where students are and what they're learning, and figuring out what happens next. If every teacher in every district across the nation was doing that and we were accountable to that, in many ways I'd find that more effective and have greater results than that we're using a standardized assessment once a year.
We didn't really gain as much as we could have from high school, and kind of had to unlearn a few things about testing in college to get back to the real meaning of education.
Students really aren't reaching their potential in the educational system.
One thing it did was breed a state of complacency in the children that were passing the tests. I was one of them. Never really had too much trouble passing an SOL test, and as long as you were doing that, you were passing the test, then there was no problem.
Students are achieving bare minimum and not thinking for themselves because teachers tell them, do this, do this, do this. Don't need to know this for the test, so don't worry about it.
I don't think that the SOLs are going to teach you anything about having a job or, managing money or stuff like that.
We need teachers to help inspire, to help teach tolerance, to help create a caring society. I'm afraid that might be getting lost in America.
We need to give these kids time to develop, time to learn, time to be problem solvers, time to be thinkers. That's what's going to make us a can-do nation again.
And I really worry about what we're going to end up with in a few years when these children who have grown up in this era of testing and know how to eliminate the wrong answer and how to fill in a bubble with a number 2 pencil really, really well, get out into the world and are asked instead to solve real problems and to do analytical thinking and to work creatively and think outside of bubbles and boxes.
We are also educating the children in such a way that there's no time for them to ask questions, no time for them to inquire, no time for them to make efforts to change the world.
Parents need to understand what a good school is, they need to understand what good instruction is, and they need to understand that every child does not thrive in the same kind of school.
Surely, we do not want to create a society where adults sit in rows and silently memorize a long string of unrelated facts.
My hope is one day soon we'll wake up and look at this law and say, what were we thinking?